We understand the overwhelming desire to know what happened, and we value the public's confidence. We have nothing to hide, and we stand confident in our actions on that fateful day of February 12th. The bottom line is the deputy sheriffs of this department and the law enforcement officers from the surrounding area did an outstanding job. They ran into the line of fire, they were being shot at, and didn't turn around and retreat. Christopher Dorner's actions became personal to the residents of this county last Thursday when he parked his vehicle and lit it on fire on a forestry road near Bear Mountain Ski Resort. He then fled that vehicle, and we assembled a search team, and we looked throughout that entire area around the resort as well as Moon Ridge to try to find Christopher Dorner. The condo complex owned by the Reynolds family, and that complex was searched by our deputy sheriffs on Thursday evening. They checked that door, and it was in fact locked. We later discovered through investigation that the Reynolds left the door unlocked so that a maintenance man could come in and check the residence and work on it. It appears at that point that Christopher Dorner had already entered that residence and locked the door behind him. Our deputies knocked on that door and did not get an answer, and in hindsight, it's probably a good thing that he did not answer based on his actions before and after that event. When the Reynolds family returned to their condo, they thought it was odd that the door was locked, but they went in, assuming that maybe the maintenance man had locked the door. When they went in to that residence, they were confronted by Christopher Dorner, who tied them up. The Reynolds family were heroes, and they were able to get out and call us as soon as they possibly could and report that their vehicle had been stolen and give us a description, and that it was stolen by Christopher Dorner, or what they believed was Christopher Dorner matching the description. Our deputies began looking throughout the Big Bear area for that vehicle. Information was received that there may be a vehicle similar in color and description southbound on Highway 38. Our deputies continued moving that direction, and then deputies from the valley area started traveling up or north on Highway 38. We then received a call from the victim of the vehicle that was carjacked on Glass Road. He explained to us that his vehicle had been carjacked by Christopher Dorner. Our deputies arrived in that area of Glass Road, ultimately found the vehicle and the cabin. Our deputies stopped in front of that cabin, not knowing that Christopher Dorner was inside. They were formulating a plan on how to look for him. Noticed shoe prints in the snow leading towards that cabin. Before our deputies could finalize the plan, they were ambushed by Christopher Dorner. He began firing at them. Both our officers went down. Responding officers arrived and actually went through a hail of gunfire to rescue these two injured deputy sheriffs.
We elected to insert what's called cold gas into the cabin in an attempt to force his surrender. We used an allied agency's armored vehicle and deployed cold gas into the cabin. There was no response from the suspect, none, no movement. And we felt that based upon his behavior that he was laying in wait for us. If we tried to enter the cabin, there was going to be another gun battle, a very close quarters gun battle, so an entry on the cabin was not an option for the safety of our officers. We then made the decision to deploy pyrotechnic chemical agent, which is much more effective in saturating a structure and getting good saturation, a lot of gas, and hopefully to force Mr. Dorner to surrender or to come out. He did not surrender. At some point thereafter, the Assistant Division Commander, Lieutenant Ginner, put out that a fire had started at the southeast corner. And I want to, one thing, before we put that pyrotechnic chemical agent in, we made numerous PA announcements identifying him by name, asking him to surrender, telling him who we were, and asking him to come out. And then the pyrotechnic chemical agent was inserted. As the fire continued to spread, when about probably a quarter of the cabin was on fire, we heard a distinct single gunshot come from inside the house, which was a much different sounding shot from the shots when he had been shooting at us, which indicated to me a different type of weapon was fired. The fire continued to spread throughout the cabin, eventually consumed the entire cabin to the point where it was no longer a standing structure. As the fire continued to burn, numerous rounds of live ammunition started detonating inside the house repeatedly, round after round after round, which created danger for our deputies as well, because those can come outside and hurt somebody if you're not under cover. Eventually, the cabin was consumed by fire to the point that it, again, wasn't a standing structure anymore. The live ammunition quit detonating, and the fire department was allowed to come in and cool what was remaining of the cabin.
Beginning at about 9 o'clock, the Riverside County Coroner's Office began the autopsy of the unidentified body that was recovered from the mountains here in our county the previous day. The autopsy took about 6 hours, and during the course of the autopsy, two significant findings were made. One was that we were able to identify through a dental examination that the body that we recovered was in fact that of Christopher Dorner. The second important finding that was made was something that we have not been talking about yet, and that is the cause of death. During the autopsy yesterday, the doctor who conducted the process concluded that the cause of death was a single gunshot wound to the head. We are not at this point ready to speak about the manner of death and tell you whether or not that it was as a result of a self-inflicted wound or another round. We will tell you that while we are still compiling the information and putting our reports together, the information that we have right now seems to indicate that the wound that took Christopher Dorner's life was self-inflicted.